All right, welcome to Spicer & Company. I'm Sean Spicer.
And I'm Lindsay Keith. Well, Sean, violence erupted in part of the country overnight, and sadly, 2 officers were shot last night in Louisville, Kentucky, after a grand jury indicted a former police officer on 3 charges of wanton endangerment. And the charges were in response to the deadly shooting of Breonna Taylor.
Yeah, I want to show you a video showing the moment the police officers were shot at. Watch closely. You can actually see the flashes from the gunfire and hear the shots. Take a listen.
So getting ready to come from their well. Here they come. Oh, they shot guns at him. Oh, shooting guns at him, real guns.
All right, well, thankfully, the officers are expected to be okay and the suspect's in custody. But, you know, Lindsay, this is not what Breonna Taylor's parents say she would have wanted. This violence, this rioting, this shooting, I mean, this is not what any of these people who have been subject to these acts of violence have ever wanted.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think back to what George Floyd's family, they said similar things, and Jacob Blake's, that they wanted peace. They wanted justice to be brought about peacefully, not with this violence. So this goes against what the people who have been unjustified, this goes against what they even wanted. So it's very unfortunate.
Yeah. This case is somewhat interesting to me, or it's tragic, but it's obviously interesting because it wasn't like she was the target of anything. She is a victim of a horrible tragedy, of a stray bullet. And I know we're going to talk to Pastor Darrell Scott shortly. He advised President Trump on police reform. We're going to talk to him in just a little bit. But first, I want to bring in the former Boston Police Commissioner, Ed Davis. He was the police chief during the Boston Marathon bombing. Commissioner, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Sean. Thank you very much. Good to see you.
So explain to me what these charges mean, because when I heard that they had been charged, the one officer of the 3 had been charged with wanton misconduct, honest to God, I'm not a lawyer. I didn't know what that means. What does that mean in police terms that he did?
Well, his indiscriminate firing so many rounds into the house was deemed to be wanton misconduct, and he's being prosecuted for it. So the only officer that's being held accountable by the court system is the officer that was fired by the city. So clearly there was a problem in the response in that way.
When I hear the lawyer, Benjamin Crump, who represents Breonna Taylor's family, they sort of don't think that justice has been done. And they're sort of saying, well, why did this one police officer get shot? He fired into a white person's home. There was other shots fired into a black family's home. You know, that family has gotten $12 million in a civil suit. The Louisville police have undergone a tremendous amount of reforms. But is this the right, in your opinion, is this justice being served, or was this, you know, is this not is there not a criminal case to be made here?
Well, if you listen closely to the Attorney General's take on this, it does not appear as though the type of charge that the victim's family is demanding fits the fact pattern. And there's a lot of people that are saying it's because of this, that, or the other thing, race is involved in it. I look at this in a different way because I did narcotics work for 10 years. I was actually on the ram, you know, pushing these doors in because people had asked us to clean up drugs in the neighborhood. So you have to remember that the police are there doing a mission that the community is asking for.
But can I ask you a question, Commissioner? Here's what I don't get. Here's what I just don't understand this. What I've been told and read, and I may not be completely up on this, is that these police went in on a no-knock warrant, meaning that they thought they needed to get the guy. If that's the case, right? I'm thinking to myself, I want to be 100% sure that the individual that we're going after is in that house or wherever they're supposedly located. Why wouldn't the police have buttoned up, ensuring that the target that they were going after was there?
Well, that's an interesting question, Sean, and that's an ongoing investigation by the United States Department of Justice. The FBI is looking at the issuance of the warrant, what the circumstances were for a no-knock warrant, which is a very high level. I've executed those, but they're only for the most dangerous locations. And they're also looking at the fact that the main target may have already been in custody. So these are serious problems in the execution of this warrant that are still being reviewed.
Okay. Commissioner, I appreciate you joining us today and helping to break this down. I'm not sure that we've heard the last of this case, so hopefully if we can bring you back at some point, we'd love to. Thank you for joining us.
By all means, thank you.
All right, let's bring in Pastor Darrell Scott. As I mentioned earlier, he advised President Trump on police reform, and he actually testified in front of the U.S. House Judiciary Committee's Oversight Committee on policing practices, law enforcement, and accountability. Pastor Scott, thanks for coming back.
Thanks for having me.
Pastor, I want to start with a clip from the Attorney General of Kentucky last night. Take a listen.
There will be celebrities, influencers, and activists who, having never lived in Kentucky, will try to tell us how to feel, suggesting they understand the facts of this case and that they know our community and the Commonwealth better than we do. But they don't. Let's not give in to their attempts to influence our thinking or capture our emotions.
Pastor Scott, what happened to Breonna Taylor is tragic. She was 100% a victim in this. But the question I have for you is this a racial issue or a police reform issue? As I just asked the commissioner, they clearly didn't have this warrant buttoned up in terms of the gentleman that they were going after. So is this a race issue or a bad policing issue?
It's, it's a bad policing issue that is being turned into a race issue. You know, one thing I noticed, Sean, facts and truth and objectivity don't matter to the left anymore, especially to the quote-unquote black left. And we have these media personalities that are spreading misinformation, and we have these celebrities and athletes and entertainers that are swallowing that misinformation and then spewing this misinformation and inflaming the emotions of those that look up to them, and it's contributing to what we see in these streets of America right now. I think the athletes, the entertainers, the celebrities need to be more responsible regarding what comes out of their mouth regarding these situations, because they're taking misinformation and they're spreading it as if it's gospel truth, right, and it turns out to not be gospel truth, and then they go silent rather than trying to correct those that they've inflamed into acting like this, because all it's doing is causing harm, destruction, violence, and it's causing a lot of pain and suffering as well.
So that's a good point. There's obviously a lot of unrest about this, a lot of obviously violence. They shot 2 police officers last night. You've advised the president before on this. He made a comment about the police officers. He hasn't commented on Breonna Taylor. If you were advising him, if he calls you and says, Pastor Scott, how can I take the temperature down in this thing, what would you tell him?
I would recommend that he simply say the Justice Department is still looking into it. The grand jury had their say, but it's very unfortunate what happened to Breonna Taylor. It's very unfortunate any time an American citizen is killed, regardless of their ethnicity. However, the Justice Department is still looking into it, and let's let them come to their conclusions, and we'll proceed forward from there.
So if he does that, the thing that I think is interesting is, as I mentioned to the commissioner, there's been a $12 million civil settlement to her family. They've made reforms in the department. Is there anything that can be done now to take the temperature down on another aspect of this? Because it seems like that's not enough for a lot of folks.
Well, for the race hustlers, for the race baiters, for those that have sinister, nefarious, evil intentions, for those that are being manipulated and motivated by outside influences, no matter what happens, it's never going to be enough. Yeah. And, they're going to find something wrong anyway, because right now during this election season, they're trying to use race to sway this election. And to me, it's backfiring on the left, because any law-abiding American citizen, without regard to whatever their color is, they want peace and safety in their neighborhoods. That's right. But so outside agitators and influencers are trying to inflame this situation. Okay. But I don't think it's going to work.
Well, Pastor Scott, thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. Obviously, we continue to pray for all of these folks. And thank you for coming back on.
Thanks. God bless you.
All right. The president is banning a certain type of diversity training and actually calling it toxic propaganda. We're going to dig into all of that training, what's it about, with Dave Rubin after the break. Then Maryland congressional candidate Kim Klacik is here. She's got a new ad out about black people struggling in Baltimore. It's already gone viral. And our religious vote series, it continues today with Ralph Reed and Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. We'll break down the impact of both the evangelical and the Muslim vote. All that and a lot more on Spicer and Company.